There we are.
Live. You are now live on YouTube. Please do not swear.
Oh, fuck. Was it me for once? Welcome to Tartan Skirmish. We are trying to do something different today. One of the things that is talked about, or not talked about a lot rather, is game organisers and what they go through to put on the lovely events that we go along in the 10-inch format. So we got on 3 of them. Going to go around the clock and let them all introduce themselves, and I thought we'd start throwing some questions out for them and let them see what they put into in terms of effort for the events that we go through. So, who wants to go first? Introduce yourselves.
Al can, because he's been in the game longer than us.
Sorry? Me?
Is that accurate? I'd have thought you were longer than Al, but I might be wrong.
Al started before me.
All right, in which case, age before beauty. On you go, Al.
So my name's BigAl. I'm a game organizer with the Pub Dark Thunder and also Pubfest UK's Nerf Convention. Started back in first event I ran was in 2012. Went to the hobby a few years before that, so 10 years plus. Been at this, and it's all good fun.
Okay, I'm Adam of BlindGeekUK. I've been in the game for 8 years, I think now. I was one of the founding members of Grim Up Nerf before leaving to do Wolfpack Nerf in Leeds. I've done the Kill Factory events and the Nerf Mania events, and my most recent one was a one-off called Hold the Front Page in a old newspaper.
I'm Orev, also known as Spectre N7. Myself and the other members of Team N7 kind of picked up the baton from Adam because Adam was doing an awful lot in terms of events, and there was a venue that was very happy to have Nerf events around it, and we basically like, hey Adam, do you mind if we run some stuff there? And Adam very generously was like, yeah, absolutely. So that's how we kind of got into it, almost by accident. Like, we wanted to keep having games at that venue, and Adam wanted to play games at that venue, so we took over and started running there instead. And unfortunately, that venue's now closed, which has kind of led to us being on a little bit of a hiatus. But yeah, most of my event experience comes from LARP, and I've then transposed that over to Nerf.
Okay, so first thing to consider is finding a site. What are some of the challenges that you've had, and what are some of the things that you look for when it comes to selecting a location to run an event at? Who wants to go first?
Well, for Pub Dark Thunder, we see somewhere we think's cool, send them an email, and yeah, I mean, for every 10 emails you send out, you'll maybe get one positive response. A lot of venues just completely ignore you or return with not really interested, or they want $1 million, and it's not really viable. So yeah, obviously, Pub Dark Thunder's kind of USP is kind of trying to find cool venues to play in. So yeah, just kind of things pop up. David does all the kind of emailing and chasing venues and stuff. He does that. He continually chases places down, and we get a sniff of interest. We follow it up and go and visit them and pester them and try and talk them into it. Obviously, we've got quite a history of events behind us now, so we've got a good kind of sales pitch we can give them in terms of stuff to watch on YouTube and things. And, yeah, with lots of positive stuff kind of in the catalogue, nice sweaty things with the venues and stuff. Yeah, it's hard, especially post-pandemic, and venues have shut and prices have gone up, and it's been a lot more difficult in the last 2 years, definitely.
I can only echo that. I mean, I'm fortunate in that the events that I and my team have run have been from a venue that already existed, had a good relationship with Nerf, and was reasonable in terms of their pricing, because that's one of the bigger issues that we face right now is because of the pandemic, as I was saying, everything's gone up in price. So we were very fortunate to be able to be essentially grandfathered into the venue by Adam's generosity. And I know Adam and I have talked a lot about how difficult it is to find sites, and I'm sure he's going to echo Al as well and tag you it.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. The way I found the venue is a lot of Google search, a lot of scrolling around on Google Maps. I try and find I look for areas on a map where there's good rail links, bus links, motorway links. And I kind of spread out from there, looking for sports halls, big things, search on airsoft sites, paintball sites, laser tag sites, you name it. I throw it into Google Maps. And like Al says, you send out 10 inquiries to venues in an area, you'll get one back. If you're lucky, it's positive. More than likely, it's say, "Oh, we can't host you," or "It's going to be too expensive." And like Crow says, and Spectre says, it's the pricing has gone through the roof. We were really lucky with the Foundry on their pricing. The venues I'm getting now, things like the Nerf Mania site, the Eyeball site, the Halberd front page site, have been probably twice the price that we were paying at the Foundry. So cost is a huge issue. And there's venues I've found that are willing to host us, but they're just so out of budget that it makes them impossible, which is frustrating because they're great sites, but no one wants to pay £50 for a 4-hour game because that's how much I'd have to charge to make it viable.
All right, so one of the things is that I know that we, in the past, Adam, off had a bit of a conversation about how much you should be charging for a ticket, and we've got slightly different opinions on these sort of things. But again, as it all comes down to, there's just Sarah and I. We don't have kids, we're pretty free and easy going in that sort of regard. But from your different experiences, how do you work out how much to charge? How much is it that basically what makes a decent place in terms of a budget? Are we talking that you have to go 100% of your ticket sales that have to go towards the higher it, or are we talking 75, 50? Where do you sort of find that sweet point where you can cover your costs, not necessarily be out of pocket there, but make sure you're not charging too much for people? Is there some sort of formula or some sort of gut feeling that you go for when it comes to pricing things? Who wants to take it?
I don't know anything about how Foam Dark Thunder and Foam Fest plan their events, but I know Adam and I have had, let's say, robust discussions about how much one should charge for a ticket, and our philosophies are kind of different. That is not to say that either philosophy is wrong, but this question is going to get multiple different answers.
Obviously, Foam Dark Thunder operates slightly differently from most other game organisers in the fact that it's a business. I don't run the business; it's run by David. He, full transparency, he pays me to be a game organiser for him. He deals with the business side of things because it's his business. So yeah, obviously, Foam Dark Thunder tickets sit at the top end. They are, the high tickets, high price tickets within the community. But for that, we do try and put a lot of effort into that. So people are paying what they would pay for a 2-hour session, but they would get an all-day game somewhere else with another game organizer type thing. So obviously the tickets are a higher price, but we do try and balance out it being a unique venue to play in, try and do some cool stuff as well. Thrown in there. The events are ideally run at a profit. That's the nature of the business.
Do you mind if I ask? I would imagine, because I know that Foam Dark Thunder as well runs parties and corporate events, and basically people can ask Foam Dark Thunder to come and like run a birthday party for them. And that's not just for kids. Like I know people who've had their 40th with FDT, and not gonna lie, seriously considering it. It's funny. But I would imagine that some of the games are subsidized by others, like games like Terminal Infection and the Battle Royale that bring in hundreds of people. Subsidized games like FDT Pro, which has 15 to 20.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely events that make a loss on. For instance, I mean, it's no secret we've lost money on the last two pro games, but hopefully build that up and get to a point where it will break even and be kind of viable to keep going. I mean, we've lost money on some of the big Terminal Infection events because obviously hiring in the actors and everything costs a few quid, and times that we've hired in lighting and sound and it's come in and give the extra atmosphere and stuff all cost a lot extra. And but then you get a really cool video which you can promote for future events.
Yeah, agreed. Adam?
I think out of probably 75 events I've run, maybe 10 have turned a profit. It is a very difficult thing. When I was running Wolfpack, I offset the cost of running the events by running the parties. For Kill Factory, I was lucky that we were getting the Foundry at a nice bargain, so I could set a price that I was generally reaching, maybe 10, £15 under most of the time, but I'm happy to cover that because I was getting to play. Nerf Mania has not yet made a profit. I've been under on every event, and some of them have been massively under. Eyeballs was a total washout. That was basically I covered the whole cost of it because the venue was just way too expensive for what we got. But choosing that price is difficult because you've got different people coming. You've got people who've got no kids, and they can cover that £15, £20 quite easily. But you've got other players who are traveling further distances or who are a family and want to come as a family. So like the Modge Davises, 4 of them have come. If you're charging £15, £20 a head, that's your month's budget gone on a single 4-hour event. So it's difficult getting that balance. And one thing I've tried a couple of times is kind of tier system, so people who are happy paying a little bit more can do. It's not worked that well, but it's something I'll keep offering if people are willing to do it. One of the main ones which has actually turned a profit was the Hold the Front Page. But again, that was a very expensive venue, so I had to charge a lot more than I normally would. So in terms of covering a venue cost, yeah, I generally am there. The additional costs, the props, the darts, the transportation of getting a car full of gear over. I never account for the petrol. That's my wife's job. So yeah.
I also think that it depends on how you consider breaking even, because if you were to account for the fact that for Team N7 to run the events we ran at the Foundry, it cost us fuel to get there, and that's driving from Scotland to Leeds, a night in a hotel, which is 120 quid for the two of us that were staying overnight. If you took those costs into account, we 100% made massive losses. But we didn't, because we didn't count that because we would have paid that anyway to attend the game Adam was running.
Yeah.
So we essentially considered that, well, if we want games to happen at this frankly amazing venue that Adam has found, then we're gonna be paying those anyway. Those are sunk costs either way. In terms of the darts, the props, and the site hire, we broke even. But we deliberately set our ticket prices to that effect. and the cost, basically the overage from event 3 that we ran is the point that we broke, because we paid out for darts and for props and the timers and all of that out of games 1 and 2, and we knew we were going to be out of pocket for those 2. But then we got to game 3 and the overage kind of brought us to a level pegging. And we still have like all the props and all the dart pool and everything else that lives in my spare room right now. So when we get to moving another event, but what we would probably do at that point is look to basically go, okay, how many players do we need? Do we think we're going to get? What is the site hire? And then maybe that would be my way of calculating. That's the way I would calculate it. Take the site hire, divide that by the number of players you think you'll get, and then add a £5 per ticket, because that then covers your dart pool replenishment, any potential breakages and things like that. Again, we're fortunate with the Foundry in that they were an airsoft site. They already had all the insurance built in and all of that. Whereas, if you're hosting an event at a shopping mall and somebody runs into a wall and puts their shoulder through a plywood facing, that wouldn't be something that we would have been able to cover. And that's the benefits that different types of game organizers, as I said, Foam Not Thunder's a business, so they have different metrics for judging that. And I firmly believe that a game organizer should not be out of pocket overly. But like when Adam says he's run 75 events, of which 10 of which have not been at a loss, and he's not paid his own money into that, it's no wonder game organizers get burned out at that point.
So next topic on the list of things is how you actually go about deciding what games you're going to run at an event. Is there going to be a theme? Is there going to be a narrative? How do you go about essentially constructing the event? Who wants to go first?
It depends on the venue and the style of game it is. Obviously, regarding Foam Dart Thunder, we have obviously when we used to run the skate parks regularly, we used to do 2 a month, one in Glasgow, and they were a fairly set format. We'd go through 4 or 5 games a night. We had a pool of 7 or 8 games, which would kind of rotate around. So you'd run the same set of games most weeks, and then swap one out here and there, and work in a cycle like that. Myself personally, I was never a massive fan of kind of story-heavy, rule-heavy, kind of themed events. Having run a few in the last year, tried to keep that kind of very light and fun, and just kind of have a laugh with it, rather than being anything too serious. In terms of Bobberfest was a theme event rather than a kind of story that went through the weekend. So just the theme was Star Wars, so all the games had kind of Star Wars theme, but there wasn't a particular story running through them with anything. First time we tried to do the story thing was the Resident Squeeble game there at FDT Pro, and that just came about.
I missed that one.
It was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing. It was glorious.
David had bought the props.
Sorry, go ahead, Al.
David had bought the props of a kind of Resident Evil theme, and we thought, right, we'll do kind of Resident Evil themed game then. But then we thought we'd try and steer away from any copyright infringement and then thing, just that we'd have a laugh with it. And Raccoon City became Squirrel City, and it just kind of went from there. We just had a laugh with it, and that was the first time we tried to make it a kind of story running through the event, although there wasn't any real consequences, or wasn't a real bonus or consequence for winning or losing a game. We just kind of vaguely tied into a kind of silly theme that we had running throughout the day. And then, I quite enjoyed that. It seemed to work quite well, and
it was silly, but it was also, it had more lore depth than some of the stuff that we've run. Like the Kill Factory events that November 7 events have run, we had this whole concept of it's people abandoned in space, doing, you know, and very much like this, we're going to be doing these games at these times, we're going to be doing these events, these are the consequences, and this was all outlined ahead of time. It's like if you won game one, then you've got this benefit. If you win game two, you get these benefits. And it's usually things like unlocking blasters, which is a thing that we learned that we kind of picked up on from some of the American HVZ stuff that we do. One of the ways in which the American HVZ games sometimes work is they will limit your blaster choices or your ammo capacities in the early parts of the game, because obviously they want the horde to grow. And then as you complete missions as part of the HVZ, they then unlock full auto, or they unlock larger magazines, or in some cases even, congratulations, you can now use blasters that have a battery because you were stuck with springers up until now. You know, that all of that kind of stuff, and that kind of heavily inspired it. But the concept of there being a plot that runs all the way through it, it's still in the grand scheme an excuse to play nerf. Like, you don't want to have your plot or your theme distract from the event. It should work with it to, like, I really liked the Resident Squirrel stuff because it was like, yeah, I can see where this is going. All of the games make sense. The objectives are clear. Each of us have clear kind of delineated things that we're supposed to be doing. But at the end of the day, all of it is do this thing and also run around and flame foam.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The because I know I wasn't really able to do a lot of participating in bits and pieces. So a big part for me was run around and shoot foam, and I just had as much fun as I normally do at an event, and it was therefore it was great. It was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Adam, any thoughts?
Very similar to Al, but I've only really moved towards the theme stuff quite recently. So Eyeballs was on Rival. Holden Front Page was very media, newspapery kind of themed. There's an event I'm planning for March, which is very Luddites versus technology, but it's very loosely themed. But I think for me, I've had a possibly larger pool of game types than Al has. So I think my pool of game types is between 20 or 30. And I've got them all in a document. And why I choose is, well, I know I'm always going to want some kind of HVZ. I'm going to want some kind of basic shooty game. And then it's like, oh, do I do Flux? If I do Flux, which variant do I do? Do I do Duck Hunt? But if I do Duck Hunt, do I want to do that? And then if you do Terminator, well, you bring in lots of Mega, so you don't want to bring something else like Bucket of Pistols, and you don't want to bring Duck Hunt. So the props kind of goes with the game types for me, but I don't want to bring too much stuff. But then I do sometimes. Like we did an 8-hour Kill Factory once, and we brought everything. So
That was a great event, though.
8 hours is a long time.
Oh, I was dead the day after, genuinely dead. But and actually that's reminded me of something that I was saying. Like, at the end of the day, the theme itself is it's a skin, in the same way that Fortnite and Apex Legends and, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare and all of those, they're all different skins on the same basic premise. So like the way that, like, Flux as a game type, like, there's a whole bunch of different games, and I think they're all published on the BritNerf forum, which is these are the basic games, and then you apply your own themed spin on it. So like Duck Hunt versus Recovery with glow sticks. It's the same game, it's just a different prop and a different theme. And the underlying mechanics are the same, and that's one of the things I think BritNerf does really well. If someone says, "Oh, we're playing Flux," it doesn't matter if the things are red and yellow or green and white or they have numbers on them. Everyone who's played Flux anywhere in the UK
understanding of
has a reason. Yeah, exactly. Has a baseline of here's how the game's going to work. And those resources are available to anybody that wants to get into this. If you're that kind of masochist.
yeah, you all are masochists, and as am I in a different fashion. But yes, that's it. So one thing that then comes off the back of that is team balance, because to use a local example, FDD had the rise of the full auto rifle flywheelers, and therefore one of their things to balance it was, let's introduce a limit on how many rifle ammunition that the full auto guys get at the start, which is what I think 200 hour, I think it was, and after that scavenging, because otherwise what you ended up was just walls of rifles getting shot at each other in the skate park rounds. So how do you approach team balance?
Yeah, the reason that came about was there was one of the skate park events where, yeah, a dozen people, like probably half the players turned up with postseason Nemesis. It was just rival tennis. There was a line of people on one side, a line of people on the other side, just pinging full auto rival at each other. It was the most boring game evening I've ever seen. And it was just, well, yeah, we need to stop this. I don't want to go down the line of saying you can't bring that with you, you can't do that. But limit the ammo if you want to use that. You can fill it a couple of times, but after that you're then gonna have to scavenge ammo for it. And yeah, it worked. It worked a treat. And people did run them for a couple of rounds and then gave up and went back to darts or smaller capacity blasters, and it lightened the game up again.
Yeah.
My solution for the rival limitation was to load it at the start of the game, and then there was always the skateboard games in particular always had a point defense game, kind of like Flux or some equivalent game. And I'd be like, cool, I have 200 rounds in this blaster. It now goes here, lives here until we get to the game where I'm going to have to, actually suppress. But that still meant that it wasn't in the game the rest of the time.
Yeah. Kind of general team balance though I found to be the most random thing. Like you'll split the teams up thinking this, that, and the next thing, and it just goes the opposite way from what you thought. And players who you thought would turn up and give it 100% are there to have a laugh that day, and they're not.
Yeah, but I've had that a few times, and it just totally throws it out.
You just have to have a couple of games ago and balance on the fly.
And certainly, like one of the things that we do at Kill Factory is the first game has like 2 or 3 iterations of it, 2 or 3 rounds, where the players have limited ammunition, limited blaster choices, and we use that to kind of get a sense of how people are going to play, what is the general skill level, and then you balance for skill level. And then after that, you're like, okay, well, it turns out that having balanced the skill level, all of Team A have bought springers, and all of Team B have fully automatic dart hoses. That's not going to be very fun for Team A. So, but that again is something you can kind of go, okay, this isn't working. And I think the best advice that you could give to somebody working on team balance is don't be afraid to be upfront with your players and say, guys, this isn't working. This is unbalanced. I need people to move. And most people are more than happy to do that. I personally would rather a game organizer come up to me and said, you are unbalancing this, or your team of 4, which move as a unit, are unbalancing this. I need to split you up. And we have like within our team a designated kind of like, okay, well, here's our battle buddy. So if we have to split, we ideally split as a 2, and then we're like, right, okay, so our job now is to take out our counterparts on the other team.
And I particularly enjoy splitting against 7-Up. That can really change the whole dynamic of the event. I've actually had one where the team balance was perfect, and it was one of the
out of 75.
Yeah, and like I say, it was every game was like 1 death, 1 point, 1 second, and it was worst game I've ever played because it was so close, it was so balanced. There was no kind of oh no, we're going to get a really good start on this game. We're going to get everything. It was every game was down to the last second, the last shot, and it was just grueling. So I quite like a little bit of imbalance, but not a lot.
Enough to
Partly
encourage the other team to,
yeah, because it gives
put
the
more
other
effort in.
team that effort. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've played at games where one team whitewashed the other team.
And again, that's horrible.
It's unbalanced though. We've been very close games and hard fought and good fun, and yeah, I mean,
and I can think of times where me and Spectre have been on a team and we have absolutely whitewashed, and then we've self-balanced as a result.
Yeah, and I think like for me, one of my sort of founding things when I sort of got into the hobby, I can be sanguine about it now, but when I first joined the hobby, winning was everything, and that is something that you have to. That I have been fortunate in that other people in the community have kind of helped me course correct for that. Whereas now having fun is important, not just for me, but for everybody at the event. And
nice to win occasionally, though.
Yeah, but like that, I'm trying to think of the example that I had in my head. The idea that just because, this was it. It was Clash of Britain F2, and if you look at the actual who won what game, one team absolutely rinsed everyone. And that was because the team that was winning, because they were mostly objective-based games, because it was in a big airsoft site. It was like a full weekend event, and there was a whole kind of theme running through it. And the team that my guys were on, it was me and my guys and the guys from Foam Alliance UK and a couple of other people who were all about their super tactical play the objective. And pretty much everyone else in the other team was, this is our weekend away from all of the stress of our lives, and all we really want to do is shoot foam at people. And because you can't, unlike a computer game, you can't look at your kind of KD ratio. You can't look at those guys and go, well, yes, okay, they lost all the games, but they have twice as many tags as everyone else. But the important point was they didn't care about the objective. They were having their fun. And they were really enjoying themselves, and they were coming away from like, yeah, we don't care. We came here, we had fun, we really enjoyed ourselves. And the fact that on paper, Team A completely rinsed Team B didn't actually factor into their enjoyment at all. And obviously, Team A had enjoyment because they were playing the way that they wanted to play and feeling like they were doing really well against an opponent that was quite willing to just throw ammo at the problem. So as much as game balance is an important skill for a game organizer to have and to be willing to be like, Team A isn't having fun, it isn't necessarily as simple as who's winning the game.
The complex and ever-changing equation.
And I'll give an example of Charlie event. N7 were all on one team, and that team, tactically, equipment-wise, just sheer number of games, should have had the upper hand. But the other team were so aggressive.
They were so hungry.
But that was the really hot event, and I think it was the heat, and it was just got to the other team, and they played so aggressively.
Oh, we were just like, guys, can we? It's 32 degrees. Can we chill, please? And we're like, yeah, okay. And we honestly,
on paper, your team, balance-wise, should have been the better team.
And we didn't. We got our asses kicked.
You got your ass. But some of the best games I've ever played are ones where I've not won. I was at Bristol Boss with Boff once. We got trounced, but we held a flank perfectly. The Kill Factory event N7 run, I held that left flank with a JSPB against David and Sarah, and I had such a blast. I don't know whether we actually won or lost. It was just fun.
I
I
remember.
think that really is the answer to the game balance question.
Yeah.
It's not
Don't
something
stress
you can
it
get
too
on.
much.
Are your players having fun? If they're not having fun, ask them what they want to. And like again, talking to players is so important. If your players are not having fun, if you've got someone in the corner of the safe zone looking miserable or banging their kind of gear about, like I'm not, why are they not having fun? And if you can take the time to have like a couple of minutes chat then and course correct, it will save huge amounts of stress and hassle later.
To reiterate that point, if I was to look on paper at Foam Dart Thunder 2, my team got utterly annihilated in every match. I don't care. It was one of the most fun events I've had this year. And that's no disrespect to any of the other events I've had. But
You won the first round.
somehow, somehow, props. If we go back to bits and pieces, we all have different thoughts on props. I'm very much somebody who thinks your imagination's more important than an expensive bit of kit. But what's everybody's thoughts on props and the importance of them? And do you think they're necessary?
I like having them. They cost money.
They do.
That's always the issue when you're running at loss. I'm looking at. I've been doing it a long time, so I've got a lot of props over the years. I've got my timers, my TNT. I've got some extra props for the whole front page. They're now part of the collection, like the vials, the cameras. I like them, but I don't try and spend a lot of money on them. Whereas I've seen some of the things Al's done, and I think they're amazing, but they're not something I'll ever afford. So yeah, they're nice to have. I like them, but I'm not going to spend a lot of money on them. Like my TNT, just pool noodles chopped up with some electrical tape around them.
Yeah, I think that works though, because that's a brilliant example of it's a mix of imagination and simple expenditure. Pool noodles and electrical tape, what, maybe a 10 quid note, right, to get that, and you've
I
got
think when I got them, it was like £4.
yeah, not a massive expenditure, but you're not going to mistake them for something else. Those are TNT. That's it. 50 feet away, dark room, you're still going to think that's a TNT thing, okay? £4 expenditure on your behalf lasts forever until you break it, or not.
Until a child eats them.
My C4 explosives
Sponges! Car wash sponges, they were fantastic.
The bicycle, like in the pawn shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought those were great when I first saw them. I'm like, I'm nicking that idea.
Doesn't have to be particularly expensive. Great
Yeah,
deal of imagination that goes into it,
And for me, I have the benefit of I do sci-fi lot. That's where my pedigree is. So I have a lot of props already that I've built over time that I kind of put forward into the thing. But like the biggest investment actually for me for November 7 was buying 2 sets of yoga mats. Grey on one side, not like yoga mats in the roll-up sense, but in the sense of this is the stuff you put on the floor of your gym. Those kind of interacting, locking things that make what?
Flux tiles.
I've got flux tiles. I've got some literally behind the monitor.
Yeah, that was the biggest expense, and that was like 30 quid. But 15 quid for 2 sets of 12 tiles, and I made up 9. I still have the spares, so if one of them dies, then it's resolvable. I don't think you need props. I think they're nice to have, but the best props in the world won't save
a bad game.
Won't save a bad game. Whereas, cheap. My recommendation for any new game organizer would be don't spend more money on anything than you have to because everything's expensive. And also like the pool noodle TNT or the C4 with bike lights, if God forbid somebody steps on one or throws it and it does go somewhere behind a piece of cover that you can't get to, there's all kinds of ways in which things can get lost or broken at events because people get excited and they start running around and they trip on. Say again?
We don't run, we tactically jog.
Tactically jog, yes. I think the greatest benefit to props is giving people something to hold, and it doesn't need to be high fidelity. You're actually doing better thinking in that slightly cartoony way of someone can look at that and go, yeah, that's a block of C4. And then if you look at it for long, you go, oh no, that is in fact a car wash sponge with a bike light. But it hits every kind of note of this is C4. The TNT again, it's 3 bits of red pool noodle or lagging insulation wrapped in black electrical tape, but it looks like something that Wile E. Coyote would order from Acme. It's like, yeah, that's TNT. Nobody's going to be like, oh, I've confused this bottle for TNT.
All right. So, any other things that you want to raise up, or do we want to sort of like wrap up? Because we've got 10
Ammo.
left.
Ammo. Because ammo is going to be one of the worst costs for any new organisers. It was so much better in early 2019 or 2018 when we were buying 1,000 darts, 2,000 darts for 20 quid. I don't know what the current price of long darts is, but it's not nice.
Current price of long darts is 35 quid shipped for 1,000.
Yeah.
And short darts is, depending on where you buy them, you can probably get 1,000 for 30.
Yeah,
but it's still
on
again one of your biggest expenditures.
Rival, if you provide a
Rival's your biggest problem because there's no decent aftermarket source of rival. There just isn't. That's why November 7 doesn't. We've basically gone, if you want to rival at our games, great. But we're not providing a rival pool. Adam, for the events that he attended, generously brought his along. And that was also great because it meant that we could go, right, well, any rival, in that case, we're like, okay, guys, please don't bring a rival. Any rival at the event goes back to Adam. But ammo, in addition to being expensive to start off, is an ongoing cost. Because, hey, why are you chewing my computer?
You paid the cat tax.
Yeah.
It is an ongoing expense. Some ammo survives better than others. Ultra, Rival, Hyper, and Vortex, they don't tend to get damaged. Long darts, mega darts especially, short darts, you're going to lose. I work on the principle of losing 10% of my pool every event. Just from deadheads. And some events it's less. Some events it's more. Holder front page was really rough on my pools.
Yeah, there was a lot of spaces in there where darts disappeared down holes and things. And, yeah, we've not been able to add to the rival pool for years. It's just kind of slowly getting smaller and smaller and not getting topped up.
I pick up the X-Shot ones whenever they're on offer.
And I've got about 400 rival rounds, which is my personal use kind of thing for my Proton pack. I wouldn't ever give that for a pool game because I'd never get it back. But also, like, rival is way less popular now.
Yeah,
possibly with the advent of the half dart.
Yeah, and that's something definitely changed in the last 18 months, or probably even the last year. From Nerf Mania onwards, I've noticed that it used to be like 25% of people use short darts, 25 rival, 50% long. It's now probably 50% short dart, if not more, 10% rival. And I think part of that is I've banned proton packs and Prometheus, things like that, because in Nerfmania you can just suppress a whole flank, and you're basically vulnerable.
If you get the tower at Nerfmania and you have the proton pack or a thing, it's like cool. Nobody leaves your spawn point. Have fun.
You've got a full coverage of the map basically from up there. So Rival has definitely died off. We still get Percy's, we still get things like that, but most of the other ones we're not seeing. It is generally Percy's and things like the takedown for H3V in terms of Rival.
Yeah, we still get a fairly big proportion of players at the FTT more games using Rival. Still quite a lot.
But
I think the benefit
100 FPS out there, so family.
Yeah, there are 100 FPS in indoor venues, which I think is the point where Rival really shines.
Yeah, and in the Foundry, Rival was awesome.
Yeah, because your engagement distance was 20 feet, if that.
Yeah. Whereas things like Hover Front Page, some of the engagement distances were fairly decent. Nerfmania, it can be anywhere from 10 feet to 80 feet.
And we're back again after a little bit of a beverage break. So one of the things is just that we were talking about as we were off camera was that we didn't want the overall feel of this conversation to have a negative vibe. So what I think we talk about for the next part is, what joy, what happiness, what you've got out of being a GO, and how it's perhaps allowed you to enjoy the hobby more or in a different way than you would have just as a straight player. Who wants to go first?
So, as sort of like the newest kid on the block in this chat, and obviously I want to encourage people, even just if they want to run like one-off events, like if you find a venue that might work for you, or you happen to have access to like a church hall or whatever, bear in mind that Britnef as a community is pretty good about supporting game organizers. Like I was only able to run events and to make the step from being a player into being a game organizer because of help from other game organizers in the community. Al and Adam and Mr. Crane from the laser tag guys in Leeds, Grim Up Nerf, all of those people have been very kind of encouraging, and they were able to help kind of try and avoid the pitfalls. So we've talked a lot about the things that make it difficult for being a game organizer, but all of those things can be mitigated because we're willing, the game organizer community is always willing to kind of help new people. So please, if you're watching this sort of after the fact and being like, oh, like they've said it's so hard, like it is. It's rewarding and it's satisfying, and we are here to help. It's the forever GM problem. Like I got into this as a game organizer mostly because I wanted games to continue happening at a venue that I really enjoyed playing at, and I wanted people who had essentially been game organizers to have the opportunity to play at that venue. So I do think that, like, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to find us on the Discord. Don't be afraid to be like, hey guys, I've found this venue, or I've had this idea for a game. Can you give us any advice? And yeah, you will find a lot of people being more than willing to kind of step up.
I only got started because Foam Dart Thunder sent me darts, Foam Dart Services sent me darts. So the whole thing of getting Grunt Nerf started, that was a bunch of us in Leeds wanted to play. We didn't have the resources. People reached out, gave us the resources, and it's just gone from there. In terms of, it is difficult. Being a game organizer is difficult. There's no escape from that. But it is incredibly amazing. When I was running Wolfpack, one of my main things about Wolfpack was at the end of those sessions, I just wanted to see kids going home absolute beaming smiles, but also their parents having to literally carry them out because they're so tired. So I ran games which were super fast, super exhausting. We only played 2 or 3 hours, but we played 30 games in 3 hours. So these kids were literally being carried out knackered. And you get to the end of an event and you see people just absolutely smiling. Their parents saying, "Oh yeah, it was great." The kids say, "Oh, we want to come again. Can we come and play another hour?" And that is just an incredible feeling when you get that kind of response. The other main rewarding thing for me is I've met so many amazing people through it. I think I've had probably 1,000 players over the 8 years I've been running stuff in parties and events, but I've probably brought in 50, 100 people into the hobby by my events. It was their first event. They've gone on to play in other events. I've met all of you three. I've met people like Frodo, who's just joined recently, Bonehead, and they've had their first event with me or with one of my friends who is a game organizer. And that is an incredible feeling because it's a community. We are a community.
Yeah.
And I know that I can go up to Scotland to play an event with people and it's going to be the same games. I can go down to Bristol play an event, it's going to be the same people. And like Spectre says, if you found somewhere, even if it's just a church hole for you and your friends, take that leap. Ask people for safety glasses. Ask people if you can borrow a rival pool. Spectre asked me if he could borrow my rival pool, and it's like, yeah, of course you can. In fact, did you borrow it twice? I can't remember. Did you were the first one and then brought it back on the second? I can't remember.
You brought it for the first. I was borrowing rival from Mr. Crane for the first one. You brought yours.
I brought it for the second one, yeah.
I deliberately didn't put yours in to avoid cross contamination, and then for personal reasons you had to leave early, which is why we ended up taking care of it for you. But yeah, the ability to be like, hey guys, I want to do this. This area is great, but I cannot find anywhere that'll lend me rival. Like I reached out to Mr. Crane because I knew he lived in the general area and he was coming to the event. He bought a ticket. He was like, "This is great. This is fantastic. I get to play for once." And I was like, "Cool. How about we refund your ticket and you bring your rival pool?" And he went, "How about I bring my rival pool and you don't refund my ticket?" And I'm like, "Okay." But yeah, there's one of the sort of things that I found really enjoyable, sort of secondhand from FTT Pro 2 was there were a couple of people who showed up for that game who had never nerfed before, were loaned blasters for FTT Pro, and were like, "This is great, this is amazing. I didn't know this existed." And I'm just there vicariously being like, they're hooked now. They're done.
They played at one of the mall games, so they came from that.
I thought they had, yeah, because I'm sure I recognised them from the
I
family
thought
one.
there was at least one person there who never played at all. This was their first game, but I'm absolutely willing to be corrected on that.
I think that was the big guy from the northeast that came and left early. Might be his first game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's played at Dishworth, so
We play there.
but I think
Yeah,
that was
no,
his
I mean,
first other game. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good fun. It's games together. Also, I started out when I started out the first organising games. It was just Nerf wars weren't really a thing. It was kind of the kids wanted to play and kind of find the space and ran a few games. And then that was even before Club Dark Thunder was a thing. And it wasn't. I found Club Dark Thunder through Facebook, I think, and thought, oh, there's somebody vaguely close running events. I'll go check that out. And yeah, kind of quickly became friends with Neil, who was running it at the time, because I'd been on a few games myself as well by that point. And yeah, just kind of got into it that way. And yeah, it's just good fun. I mean, we have gone through a few cons of it and the stresses and struggles of it, but at the end of the day, we do it for one reason, because we do enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of fun than it is to playing, but the satisfaction of watching people do something that you've enjoyed, that you've put the creative effort into, and then go away excited. That is there's no feeling like it.
We're coming to the end of 2023, with it being, I think, the 1st of December. I don't know. 1st of December,
It's
yes.
1st of December.
Shows you how much attention I pay
There's
to things.
one event left or 2 events left.
There
in
is,
the
yes,
calendar.
there's caves. Exactly, yes, there's caves.
And Grim Up North.
Yeah. And so looking forward to 2024, okay. Where would we like to see the hobby scene go, for the UK especially? Yes, externally, worldwide, we like to see different bits and pieces, but where would we like to see the UK scene go? In what direction do you think it can go? What would you like to see personally happen? What are your thoughts as to where you can move? Or is there something that you'd like to do, as an organizer, as a member of the community? Is there something that you would like to be running in 2024?
What I personally like to see is back to kind of pandemic kind of levels of monthly games would be good. Obviously, we hit that brick wall with the venues being an issue
Yeah.
in the pandemic, so it'd be good to just get back to that point where we're running more regular.
So in 2022, in 2023, in the last 12 months, I was looking at this the other day when Adam was talking on the BritNerf Discord server about high FPS versus low FPS, like what do people find attractive. I actually went through the numbers and worked out how many games had actually taken place in 2023, and there's more than I thought. In terms of regular games, there were between I want to say there were 23 sub 130 games and about 18 130 plus games.
There's nearly one a week at that point.
Yeah, and I don't think it's quite that, because obviously some of the events were invite only, and some of the events were like the sort of big weekenders. What I would like to see, I think, is the getting back into that kind of regular. And it's good to see with like Grim Up North, for example, they're about to run their second monthly game back of significant, basically the regular game after the sort of post pandemic. I'd like to see more high FPS games, but I recognise that is a whole separate thing. And we are looking at ways to try and make more high FPS games happen, but that is mostly because, for me at least, and this is my purely personal thing, when the pandemic happened, high FPS was the only game in town for obvious social distancing reasons. I invested a bunch in blasters that I can't use and games that are limited to 200 and below. So, like, I have toys I want to play with. So I'd like to see more high FPS games. That's not to say that they need to be less 130 and less one dual games, but I definitely would like to see more high FPS just because I've got toys to play with. I'd also like to get the next chapter of the November 7 events story is written, but we know what the next game's plot, for want of a better word, is. And I know I just need to sit down and actually get in touch with the guys at Dishforth and run it. But I'd also like to I'd like to see more games happen in the depot. And I'm really looking forward to see what Foam Dark Thunder do with that venue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, we talked about running higher FPS games at Foam Dark Thunder for literally years. Like, we always hit upon the point that there's not enough players in this area to make it worthwhile. But the advent of Smiths stocking 150 FPS blaster on the shelves kind of changed things, and the fact that more and more Dark Souls stuff's coming out that's hitting that kind of 150. I mean, it literally changed the game, which made us look at the FTT Pro in the game. And yeah, we were proved right that it isn't that massive player, obviously. But if we can, like the likes of those guys that came along last week in the mole game, kind of the dads that play, the uncles that play, the older kids, if we can get them to start coming along to the pro games, it makes them kind of viable, and yeah, hopefully we can continue that game. But I think Film Dark Thunder will always remain kind of 100 FPS, family friendly, entry level. Is it cool?
I love I haven't missed Eternal Infection. I love the lower FPS games as well, because it also allows for like slightly less sane, less optimized loadouts. Like I don't need to bring like I can run a belt of hammer shots in a 100 FPS game. I can run an upgraded Stampede and no one's going to. I'm not going to be outgunned in that circumstance. Whereas if I take an upgraded Stampede to say hold the front page, I'll just get domed all day.
Yeah, the ability to just have fun and not worry about what you want to run and still have it be viable at the Foam Dark Thunder family events is, I think, something that will continually keep drawing players to it. I think that's how you get new lifeblood into the community, is having events like that and making them very family friendly, and making it so that people can turn up with whatever they want to have, run it, and just feel welcome and that they have a great time. So yeah, I'm all for those things continuing. But like Spectre says, I've got a few higher FPS toys that I wouldn't mind cleaning the dust off and letting them have an airing, and it's certainly good fun at the different environments and different game types and whatnot there, because let's face it, it's always fun to be able to just play the same game in a completely different setting and see how it absolutely changes everything. You play Flux at Ocean Terminal, right? And you play Flux at Dishforth, and they are the same game rules, but they are entirely different experiences.
I'll tell you something else I'm looking forward to in 2024. Al, do we have an announcement yet?
Just announced Film Fest will be happening on August 10, 2024 at Royal Holloway University in London. There will be obviously games around the weekend on the Friday and Sunday also, but they are to be confirmed at this point.
The dates are finalised.
Yeah, I mean, we are deep into negotiations about the game. We just haven't. We did want the confirmation in for us to announce the date, but yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a Royal Holloway. Oh, that's going to be great.
That's the same place that they done
28 days later, yeah.
That's the one, yeah, that's it. So that'll be fun.
So they have a
accommodation on site for Royal Holloway.
Yeah, so we're looking at getting student accommodation again. There's also travel lodge and Premier Inns within driving distance and stuff as well.
Well, I've already got my annual leave booked off for that. So
train station in Edgeham and right next to Heathrow. Could be handy for a lot of folk.
Will be.
I'm now intrigued as to whether there's going to be a high FPS game at Foam Fest. I don't know if I missed that because I was reading the announcement, where you would have a high FPS game in that area. But
yeah, there are off-site areas round about.
Say again?
On the campus. There are sites not on the campus within driving distance. So
lovely, love it.
But yeah, no, we just thought it was good to. So I've been to the two HVZ events there, and got quite friendly with the HVZ Society and stuff, and chatting to them, and they've got really good club, and really trying to kind of build the HVZ club there and stuff. And we had all the facility we needed, and we were looking at the London area anyway, so we felt that was a good fit.
And it makes international travel. Excuse me a moment, I have to ping some people.
Everybody's still.
An international militia of nutters need to be told.
Just going back to where it can go next year. I don't think we're ever going to go back to what it was like in 2018, 2019.
No.
Obviously, we've lost so many venues. Things like Wolfpack just can't exist anymore because of the cost of insurance. We've got no skate park events anymore, which is gutting because I love skate park events because of the verticality and the running up the ramps and just it's so much fun. For me, where I want to see 2024 is it's at mix. I personally want to get to as many events as I can next year. But whether I can, because it's my kids doing their GCSEs and A levels, it might be me rushing out of the house to get away from them. It might be me stuck here. But we have so many good events already. There's like Bristol Blast and Grim Nerf. If you're getting into Nerf, just go to one of those because they're a great first experience. Gumdat Thunder in Scotland, they're an amazing first experience, worth that money. The Aces event at Dishworth, if you want that middle ground where it's not super high FPS, but it's a nice, you're getting shot, but it's not low FPS, it's not kid toys really. Dishworth is an amazing site, and the different ways of playing there. You can play it up close, you can play it long distance. Personally, like I said, I'm going to try and get to as many sites, but I'm stepping back from running public events next year. I've decided that I don't want to deal with a lot of people. One of the things I've really enjoyed the last 2-3 years after the pandemic was being able to choose who I want to play with. So there'll be events, some people get invited to, some people won't. It didn't seem to be a big problem during the pandemic and in the first early days of the post-pandemic Kill Factory. So I'm going to be going back to that. So we've got a lot of new players as well now, so people will be getting invites from them. And I'm looking at different venues. I've run in so many places: school halls, church halls, scout huts, football pitches, skate parks, stadiums. I've run everywhere. So I'm looking at different airsoft venues. I'm looking at warehouses. I'm looking at old school buildings, office buildings. So one of my aims of 2024 is different events, different to what I've done previously. So we'll be CQB, so that's what I like, but we'll be CQB in different venues.
I think, like, I'm super enthused to get the sort of finalized dates for FF24 because that has I want to play. I'm hoping there's going to be a 28 does later this year as well, so there's going to be HVZ there. So we'll have a layer of the campus, but I think there's a lot. It's going to be really good to get an in-person convention again, because that in turn builds community. I think that really is what I want to try. What I would ideally like to see would be building the community again, because the pandemic, inevitably a lot of people kind of lost interest or moved on or grew up. Like,
quite an influx of new people as well since then. So
that's true, but like we can only grow from here. Will be the hope. I know that like in 2018 or 2019, there was a game every weekend if you're willing to travel.
Yeah,
and
multiple games some weekends.
Say again?
There was multiple games some weekends.
Yeah, there was on average more than one game a week. which was mad. And I don't ever think we'll get that back, but it would be nice.
But you got to start somewhere to grow back up to that.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be a natural point where sort of equilibrium is achieved for seasonally. You know, you'll have that quieter period, getting a bit busier during the summer months and whatnot there.
To just kind of echo Adam a little bit. If you like, all of this stuff is on Facebook, all this stuff is on the Britain is I guess announced on the Britain Discord. And if you're watching this and you've never done this before, the Grim Up Nerf games and the sort of 130 games, you can literally buy a blaster on your way to the event and play. Like, don't be put off by the fact that it doesn't have to be expensive to get into. It doesn't have to be an expensive hobby to get into.
No.
I fully accept that I am a crazy person who spends a lot of money on this hobby, but you don't have to. And indeed, I have seen people with like a Jolt and a Will and a Prayer absolutely dominate events. There's absolutely nothing about this hobby that requires you to spend money except perhaps getting to the game.
Yeah. I think that's one of the key strengths for it. You can bring along whatever you want, and for the majority of the environment, you will be able to have a very good time. And you will, you know, perhaps want to spend more things on stuff, but you don't need to. We've all got our particular chosen loadouts, but we don't need to. You know, I remember running a Hades and having an absolute blast with what is essentially an unwieldy, unpopular, like 40 quid Black Friday rival thing and having a whale of a time and only just passing it on to somebody else because I got something different in a sale. So yeah. Any closing thoughts? Because I am very aware that it is sort of, we've been chatting for a while and I don't want to keep you guys talking too much. You've been very generous with your time this evening. Any final words?
Go to events, learn the games, find a venue, run stuff, because we want to play.
As much as we've talked about how difficult it can be, it is an incredibly rewarding way to experience the hobby. And we are more than happy to, and not just us, but the game organizer community in general has proven time and again to be more than happy to help people make that step. So don't be afraid of doing it. If we can support you, we will do.
Al, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just come to events, have fun, join in. If you feel it's the route you want to go down, there's plenty of help available and experience. I mean, actually, dozens of game organizers on Britain with years and years and years of experience, and it's a good resource to tap into if you need to.
Okay. Well, I think that is a wrap for this recording, gentlemen. Thank you so very much for your time. And to anybody watching this, I hope that you have been able to gather some information and enjoy watching this. Take care, everybody.
Cheers, guys.